Hello, 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 my loves, and welcome to EQ with Jah. So it's been a minute since I've done one of my extended videos. I think I did it the full moon, but that's been a couple weeks. So right now, I have been feeling this overabundance of joy and love and being bubbly, and I'm like, oh, it's because the spring is coming. The springtime, even though it's winter right now, I get it, but we're in the process of the winter starting to fade and going to the spring months, and this is when we start to wake up. The earth has already begun its springtime job. So I just know that the feminine energy is ready to start budding and expressing, and it's going to be so vibrant and so amazing, because this last year of 2020 has definitely put everybody in a state of gratitude and understanding who they are. Now, with that said, something that I have noticed that in my mind, it's a trend that maybe most people see, maybe not, but the trend is over the last few centuries, we have lived in the masculine energy primarily because we did not have the advancement of technology that we do now. If you really think about how we used to date and court each other back in the day, and even when your parents and grandparents used to say, well, we didn't have these cell phones. We had to physically do this. We had to physically go do the work. We had to physically meet up. That is masculine energy. You have to physically court someone, physically go out and make sure that they're comfortable, physically go out and make sure you're comfortable. And all of these things came back to the treasure, which is the feminine, having this feminine locked away just for ourselves. And when you say it out loud, you hear how distorted it sounds. But back then, it sounded very romantic. Like, this is my person. You know, we're going to be together forever. We met when we were at this age, and now we've been this many years that we've been together. I think that's beautiful. But something I noticed is that people literally are together based on proximity and not actually wanting to be with the person they desire to be with from their soul remembrance. Now, it's going to get a little complicated, but if you follow along, awesome. The thing about the soul remembrance, it will guilt trip you into believing you're supposed to wait for your last past life partner, because the body, again, is only a vessel. It is not the memory. The heart and the soul that lives inside of you, the two together produces the energy that gives us that heart memory, is what I'm talking about. So as the blood pumps through us, the soul is incarnated because of this heart. So the soul resides in the heart, and because of that, every single relationship that our mother experienced, our grandmother experienced, our father's experience, our grandfather's experience, that blood, those DNAs, that organs, all that, it's all inside of us. And so that level of yearning and wanting to do better than our parents, or wanting to do better than our grandparents, if you ever heard people say that, that means you're living out your current reality in 2 generations back at all times. And based on that logic, on their understanding, if you're trying to mimic what your parents had or your grandparents had, then you're living off of about 4 or 5 generations back, because they probably idolized their family the same way. Doesn't matter if it was a distorted love or not. If it was longevity, that's what we try to romanticize in the modern times. And at the end of the day, I think it's beautiful when you can put in the work with someone and build, but you also do not have to sit and destroy your own will and desire to live, waiting for someone who's not ready. The analogy that I came up with, I was talking to a friend. Think about it like this. You have this car. You love your car. It's a favorite car that you wanted when you were a kid. You finally were able to get it when you're older. And then you've had it for all these years. You have all this experience with it. And then out of nowhere, it breaks down, or you have to go get maintenance on it. Now, because you've been through all this work with this car and all these experiences, you're like, this is my baby. You know, I don't want to abandon it. I don't want to give up on it. This is the same as a past life relationship. This is the same as a physical, earthly relationship. In our minds, because we put the work into it, we think that we're supposed to continue to try to keep putting work into something that doesn't work. If we decide that it does matter enough for us to get the work done to it, then we don't want to be those people who literally, and I've done this, and I've been there around the people, you go get your car checked or oil changed, and then they're like, you can go shopping or something or whatever, we'll call you when it's ready. And you're like, no, I'll sit and wait. And then it takes an hour or 2 hours. And then you start getting mad. Is my car ready? Is my car ready? This is how we treat spirit with our partners. Where's my partner? Where's the person I'm supposed to be with? What's happening? And spirit's like, I'm currently working on your car. I'm currently working on your person. I told you that you can go do something else in the meantime. Hey, we even have a rental car for you right here where you can go off and play with the idea of being with something new. This is your choice. At the end of the day, you don't want to be one of those people where I was one of those people, which is why I try to give advice to help others. I would sit and wait on someone who was not emotionally ready, or I would date someone and get to know them, and because I liked them or we got along, within the first month or two, I was like, all right, well, I belong to this person, which is not healthy, mind you. Not unless both people are on the same page of like, we belong together and we're going to do this. Even then, you have to know how to create balance of distance and time together, because this is duality and the polarity. Like, two halves of a whole have to have their ends to be who they are, to come back together to create the whole. And so understanding this, I had to step back and say, Jawan, you belong to no one unless you choose to invest energy into them. Jah, I know you remember who you were with and who you were and how to love, but guess what? There is no wrong choice, because those were past life decisions. A lot of us have these, again, ingrained, embedded guilt, shame, whatever, when it comes to wanting to go out and express something new. This is where you see so many interracial couples. When you've been built and come from a home and a background that says you're only supposed to be with this, and you're like, but why? Because we just said so. This is what we're used to. This is how it's always been. That's not an answer to fulfillment. How it's always been is not going to get us anywhere. And where I realize this is what I was saying in the beginning of the video, with all the analogies I've given. I know there's a ton, but that's when you realize, you're like, oh, before we didn't have technology to reach out to people the way we do now. There's been a new intimacy that's been created through texting. Back in the day, where there was no cell phones, you had your group of friends. May they have been homosocialized and distorted, or homosocialized and divine, you still went to groups of people who looked like you, thought like you, and tried to get advice, versus getting advice from the people who are opposite of you that you're trying to attract. So you have a lot of alpha masculine, alpha dominant people trying to control a relationship with someone who's a natural nurturer and lover and wants to be that beta in the relationship, but now they feel stuck and trapped because you're overly dominating, taught from a homosocialized view of boys do what boys do and girls do what girls do. But see, now technology, being able to text, has given us the ability to think about what we're saying. Think about how we're going to craft a sentence and be emotional and be spiritual and really make someone feel comforted. Again, we always do this, talk about sweet nothings and stuff in your ear. Well, they were sweet nothings back in the day because you didn't have the technology to follow up. You just had to wait until you heard back from someone. And to me, oh my God, I remember as a young kid, that was so like... it was so overwhelming, because you're like, what do I do with this energy? I just have to wait until I see them at school on Monday, or I have to wait until I get a phone call, you know, and my parents aren't on it. It's so, God, thank God for cell phones, because dial-up was annoying, especially if you were waiting for a call from someone. But this is all a journey of understanding that. Let me make the analogy clearer. You don't want to be the person who, you're sitting at the shop, your car is being worked on. May this be a past relationship that you physically had, or a past relationship that you emotionally remember. Waiting is not going to make it get done faster. Waiting is not going to make it manifest the way you want it to manifest quicker. Going out, living your life, and testing things out that make you feel comfortable, happy, and have firm boundaries in your preference. Because again, there's so many people where they're stuck on preferences and this and that. That's okay if their preference doesn't align with your morals or values, but it's still their preference. And so knowing this helps you set the boundaries for yourself. And your boundaries for preference can be someone who's committed, someone who's consistent, someone who communicates well, someone who's genuine with their thoughts. These are all your choices of preference, not just if they're tall, if they have a, nice body, stuff like that. Those are superficial 3D things. And so this is the understanding of, you don't want to get mad at spirit for you deciding to wait for something that's not ready for you. If the car's not ready, then take the rental and go do something like they said in the meantime to keep you distracted. I know it sounds bad if you really interpret it back to dating, but there's plenty of people that aren't ready for relationships, but they want that emotional connection through conversation. Learning how to rebuild emotional conversation with people that you really know you have no intent on being with emotionally to the level of relationship, that's where you get to practice being honest. Open and honest. There's no point in this world at this point to be ghosting anyone. You can simply say, hey, you know what? You were cool, but I don't feel it's a match. I don't feel the chemistry, but I would love to be friends if you're cool with that, because clearly we have some type of connection if we made it this far. And if the person's not mature enough to see that, then yeah, let them walk away. But just remember that this is all a part of the process of knowing that you create every reality that you choose to create. You hear my cat in the background. You create every reality that you choose to create. And so if you want a new relationship, simply create one. If you want a new connection, simply create it. Anytime we say, no, I want this old one, I want to stay stuck, then you have to realize that it's a willingness to stay stuck. It is a willingness to be stagnant. That is the choice. That is the free will. But you cannot blame the universe and the seasons and the cycles that every day they give you the opportunity to plant something new, to come into harvest that's beneficial to you. So when you really listen to yourself, when you really start dating again and you're putting yourself out there, really cleanse your past. Really take the time to remember that if I don't forgive that path or that history, then I'm literally emotionally stuck there, because that was a version of me that I presented to them when they first met me. And so for me to be mad at an energy I no longer have or a presence I no longer have, that's when you pull in gratitude, pull in that knowledge of, yes, I'm here because I've experienced this before. The reason why I'm waiting is because the universe is trying to make me get tired to realize this is not coming back to you, or this isn't meant for you, or this isn't ready for you. Whatever the case may be, do not become stagnant and waiting for something to grow that's underneath the rock. Until that rock is moved, yeah, there will be growth, but it's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to be hindered because of the weight and pressure of that expectation to grow through something that it can't. You can't see the light if you're always creating darkness around it. And so if you want to release old energy, you have to see the light and what it did for you and where it brought you to your current state and timeline of understanding and acceptance. This is how we bring it all back into balance. And so now, let's say you drive this rental car around, metaphorically, and you like it and it's cute. And then you realize, you know what, this isn't the car for me. And then out of nowhere, a couple days earlier, they're like, hey, your car's ready. Now it's time for you to have again. This is a choice. Now, this is the best part about this car analogy. Even if your car gets fixed, it can break down again. This is a relationship. Even if you have the best relationship and you love it and you've put in 20 plus years, you're going to have to keep putting work in, because at the end of the day, if you started that relationship on a shaky foundation, the foundation is always going to be the foundation, but you can rebuild the structure around it to make it more solid. And so if you choose to pick the new is the new. Now you know it's working perfectly fine. But just like the new, there's going to be things that are going to be unforeseen that are going to happen in your daily happenings that you have no say in, and you're just going to have to process them because it's new. At the end of the day, the work will need to be done on either side of the spectrum. May it be polarized or in the dual state of knowing. Just understand that this is all built for your clarity, your comfort, your insight, and your remembrance. Because if you trust what you're feeling, if you trust what you're remembering, and you start putting thoughts and words to it, not some conditional thought and word that has some stereotype attached to it, but like really trying to understand the meaning of an emotion and applying words that you know have value to you, you'll start building a blueprint of what you need to do to get to the next level that lets you love yourself. Because at the end of the day, you truly, truly, RuPaul says best, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? And if you can really start recognizing that it takes time. It takes time and patience to see what you actually want. When you want it, it will come to you like that. That's not the problem. See, manifesting is easy. And a lot of people are so caught up in instant manifestation that they're like, yes, I got everything I wanted, but you're not emotionally ready to handle it. And so this is why money, relationships, all these things that humans desire and want to have and we romanticize, when you get it, you want to be mature enough to hold on to it. All right. I hope that made sense. I feel like I was all over the place, but if you can pull some truth out of it for yourself, please do so. I love you guys. Stay balanced out here in this world. Emotions are not going anywhere. Logic is something we use to help us, give us guidance. And then the feeling that we get afterwards of understanding the emotion and the logic together, they build tools that we get to utilize now as something to guide us versus using it as a weapon to hold us back. All right. I love you guys as always. Check me out on all my social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And also you can go ahead and check out my descriptions where I now have my book out. It is called The Rebirth, Reactivating Our Emotional Consciousness. So you can find that on Amazon. The link will be below as always. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support. Have a wonderful day. Besos. Mwah.